Welcome to the English Lake District. As you can already see, it's pretty early morning. It's middle of December, and I've just arrived at the parking space, got my gear on, and I'm ready to go up to Sprinkling Tarn and Stockbridge for sunrise. It's about an hour before sunrise. There's a little bit of colour coming into the sky already. There was a great full moon as I came down through Keswick and along the side of Derwent Water. But I've got quite a walk up into the mountains, so fully loaded, all my gear on my back, and ready to go. There's quite a few cars here, but I'm the first to arrive, so off I go. Stay with me. Well, almost there, but blimey, let's have a look. That section there was the killer. Gee, it's mid-December, but it's really, really warm. Car temperature said about 12 degrees centigrade this morning, and it must be hotter than that, so the hat's come off. But gee, it's like one of, you know, they do those things at the gym, the step machines. You don't need a step machine when you come up there. It probably doesn't look steep on the phone. Sorry, I'm using the phone because the GoPro battery's a bit low. Made a really stupid mistake. When I filmed a previous bit, I put the GoPro back in my pocket and I didn't turn it off, so it's been filming the inside of my pocket for about an hour. But anyway, steep, really steep. But almost there, and I might just dip my head in there. Maybe not, because there's probably a sheep having a pee up the top. But a few more minutes and I'll be there. But unfortunately, grey clouds. So I've arrived at Sprinkling Tarn, and although there's a bit of blue in the sky, weather's coming that way, and you can see it's glorious. Not glorious as most people would think, but glorious because that mist is so evocative of kind of darkness and kind of mystical times. But anyway, Great Gable and Green Gable, there's a chance, sorry, it's quite windy, so I almost feel as if I'm going to get blown away. There's a chance that the sun could pick out Great Gable and Green Gable, those big mountains there, at any second. So I'm set up and I'm ready, and I'm anticipating some glorious light over there. So as Barry White might say, let's wait and see if the magic happens. But anyway, I'll talk you through the setup in a second, but just going to take some test shots. So I'm temporarily back to my phone, so the sound's not going to be quite as good. But I just wanted to share kind of a bit of a message with you. You will notice I've put this coat on. That's primarily because it got quite hot and sweaty coming up Grant's Gill, which is the path that comes up. Actually, I started down in the valley. Hang on now. Down in the valley. The path comes up Grant's Gill, up around the back of here, and through along here, and leads me to obviously the Tarn. But I want to just say, kind of, if you're coming out to places like this, my backpack, which is there, it's obviously got my camera gear in, but I've also got two hoodies, not hoodies, 2 fleeces, spare t-shirt, spare fleece, a waterproof trousers, gloves, spare hat, 2 head torches. If a battery goes, you need the backup. I've got enough food and water, to last me quite a long time, and I probably won't use half of that stuff. But how do I know when I'm not going to use, when I will need to use it? I've got an emergency first aid kit. Sorry, the wind's probably blowing across this microphone. Emergency first aid kit, hand warmers, things like that. So you never know when you're going to have an incident and maybe be forced to spend a few hours or even a day stuck with somewhere like this. So please, if you come somewhere like this, if you're inspired by my video or other videos of people you see, please make sure you're prepared. Don't forget a map and a compass. I've got my map and my compass. You can't rely on your phone. You know, you can't use Google Maps to come to places like this. As good as Google Maps is, it's not going to help you up here. So please, please, please come prepared. I've put this coat on because it got quite hot and sweaty coming up the hill. Took my hat off as you saw earlier on. But you get to a place like this, as soon as you stop putting in that exertion, you start to cool down and it can be quite dangerous. So I've put an extra layer on, I put my hat back on, and I'm trying to stay warm rather than get myself cold. And hypothermia can, I know it sounds dramatic, but hypothermia can sneak up on, even on conditions like this. It's 12 degrees down in the valley. It's probably 4 or 5 up here. With the wind chill, it's about 0 maybe. You never know what's going to happen, so please, just be prepared. And I'm sorry if I'm teaching grandmother to suck eggs, but just want you to kind of be aware of your surroundings. I haven't seen a single other human being, so if I got stuck, no phone reception obviously. I could be here for a while, so come prepared. And when you are here, enjoy it. Still waiting for the, try and get a good view of that. Still waiting for the sun to hit those mountains, Great Gable, but it's a little bit frustrating because there's blue sky down there, but behind me, look at the contrast. Go blue sky, grey sky. Anyway, stay tuned. So Barry White's let me down and the magic hasn't happened. Story of my life. Anyway, I thought I'd talk you through the setup a little bit while I'm waiting for some kind of sun to do something for me. Talk you a little bit through the setup. So, because it's quite a kind of trying to get the tarn in and the scene in the background. Wide angle, even a kind of super wide angle lens, not going to do it justice. So I'm going to have to do a series of images and stitch them together as a panorama. So if you look closely, I'll swap hands. If you look closely, hopefully this works. I'm set up, I'll brighten that so you can see it, but when I'm taking a photo, it'll go dark again. Obviously, I'm working in portrait. You see lots of people shooting panoramas in portrait mode, and the reason for doing that is when you stitch them together, if you shoot in, I'm sorry, I'll turn my back to the wind and hopefully you can kind of minimize the noise. If you shoot in landscape portraits, you might think, oh, I'll do 3 images and stitch them together, but when you use the software to stitch them together, you're going for it's almost like peering through a letterbox, and you lose kind of quite a lot of detail because you've got cropped down to kind of a narrow view. You sometimes lose quite a lot of detail above, below and to the sides, just to try and get your kind of letterbox in. If you take shots in portrait, you take more shots. So this might be 5 or 6 shots, but it means there's more room to play with when I've stitched them together. So if you imagine laying 6 pieces of A4 paper next to each other, and then you've got to make a letterbox, you've got much more scope to make a letterbox out of that than if you lay 3 end to end and try and make a letterbox. Hope that makes sense. But so what I'm going to do is take maybe 6 shots, move the camera obviously as I take those. So one will be starting at this end of the tarn, the final one will be that end of the tarn, and then I'll stitch them together. Sun's not come out yet, but I'm going to do it anyway because I'm thinking convert it to black and white, and it'll give me that kind of moody. It's it's a kind of moody. Look at that. It's a kind of moody, kind of emotive sort of day in terms of the weather. So make the most of it. Take those shots. What's that saying? When life gives you lemons, slice them up and stick it in a gin and tonic. Make the most of kind of what's to offer. I mean, I'm not walking up here you know, just to say, yeah, and the weather's no good and go home. Try and work with what I've got. So I'll take those panorama, that series, and then I'll stitch them together after this clip. I'll try and see if I can show you the difference between landscape and portrait panoramas, and hopefully that's a better explanation than my kind of garbling a few seconds ago. But anyway, I'm going to do that, and hopefully they work out okay. So I've got Conundrum. Not sure anything more is going to happen here today in terms of the weather, but you know, it's spectacular. It's a privilege to be here. Nobody else around. So the conundrum is, I've got two options for a route back to where I'm parked, and then I'm going to pop in to see my mate Pete, who going to make me a cup of tea. Hopefully, Pete, did you make me a cup of tea? Incidentally, Pete and his wife Annette run the best guest house in the Lake District, so I'll stick a link in. It's fantastic, really. I'm not just saying that because he's my mate. It's a fantastic place. But anyway, my conundrum. I've got two options to get back and go back the way I came. So I know that route up, and I've seen a couple of things on the way up that I could stop and photograph on the way back. There's a waterfall with a nice tree, stuff like that. Sorry about the wind. Or I can carry on round the back of the Tarn and round the corner. I don't know if you can pick it up, but the path kind of drops down into a bit of a valley and goes round the back there. There's another Tarn, Styhead Tarn, and then there's a waterfall. The conundrum is, I've never been there, so I don't know what to expect. I've done a bit of research and I've seen some kind of nice write-ups and some nice images. But the conundrum is, do I go back the way I came and get the guaranteed stuff that I knew I was going, that I've seen on the way up, that I know is there? Or do I risk it a little bit? Blimey, the wind's picking up. Do I risk it a little bit and go down the valley and see what happens? I'm not sure. What would you do? You'll find out, but I haven't made my mind up yet. It's one of those, I might not be back here for a while. Do I go back? Yeah, can't decide. Maybe I should toss a coin or something. Yeah, well, you'll find out if you keep watching the video. So I've moved a little bit away from the Tarn. It's just kind of a few hundred yards over there, but I wanted to, sorry about the wind. It's blowing a bit of a gale now. But I wanted to show you where I started and where I've come from, so I'll be careful with my footing. So you can see, let's see if I can get this right. That is Derwent water. I started this morning in Cockermouth, so came down past Derwent water, and my car is about there. So I then walked up, came up this valley, all the way up here, all the way up Grant's Gill, back round into the mist, and then, I don't know if you can see it, there's the Tarn just, hang on, this, there. Great Gable and Green Gable. It's quite hard to do that. Great Gable and Green Gable are there. But you can see there's a bit of can you see anything? The light is coming and going. It's unfortunately not shining on the mountains, but you know, clearly I can't take a photograph in that. But it's wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And still not seen another person, seen a few sheep. Someone would say I haven't seen another living soul, but I've seen sheep and I'm absolutely surrounded by life. I've seen birds, I've seen signs of deer, but then stuff that people don't kind of really look at, the mosses and the lichens and the grasses and the fungi, just everywhere. So I might be by myself, but I'm absolutely surrounded by other living things. So I haven't got it all to myself. I'm the only human here at the moment, but there's other creatures about. And the wind's blowing quite a lot, in case you can't hear me. Derwent water. It's gone. So I made my choice. What would you have done? Go back the way I came, or push on and go the new route? I pushed on and I'm going the new route. Two reasons. One, I've come up that other route, or up Grant's Gip, so it's logged in my head now what the opportunities are there. So going a new route, it's almost a recce now, going back down. I'll go down this route. If I see some opportunities to take some photos, I will. But it's also a recce opportunity, so I'll know the whole route, and I'll log it in here and in my notebook for future reference. And two, as much as these videos are about me taking photographs, and clearly it's what I do, I didn't want the walk to be all about just going back and trying to grab that one photo and think, right, the walk's a success because I've got one photo in the bag. That's not how I kind of rate these days. The walk's a success because I've enjoyed myself and because I got back safely, touch wood. So I didn't want it just to be about, right, go out, get the shot, stick it on YouTube, job's done. Hopefully it's more about kind of the whole experience rather than just the photo. But talking about getting back safely, I hope I don't need this, the stretcher box. So obviously this is, well, those of you who know the area, kind of Great Gables just up there, Scarfell Pikes over there. And this stretcher box is obviously for mountain rescue. I haven't seen anybody else, still haven't seen anybody else. But people do take risks. Fingers crossed, touch wood, I don't need it. I'm back on the phone again, but hopefully I've got a little bit of battery life left in my GoPro, so if I get some opportunities, I'll take them. So on the way back down, come past Stockbridge Tarn. It looks really picturesque, but the cloud had closed in, so it gave me a scene, something like that. So I guess when it's sunny and clear, you get great views of Great Gable and kind of down that direction. So it's worth coming back. Quite a nice path along some waterfalls, although really slippy. So I went to take a photograph of a waterfall. I was going to film some footage, but that ended up just kind of sliding around on my backside. But anyway, almost back, so I'm going to try and point now. That's where I started. My car is there. It was dark when I arrived, so give you a bit of an idea. Still a bit of a way to go, still quite steep, so I think this is the steepest bit of the descent. Interestingly, comparing to kind of the way up Grant's Gill. Grant's Gill started off relatively smoothly and then kind of shoots up, and you'll have seen my comments earlier about those steps. I think it's the other way around here. Came from where the stretcher box is. It's a relatively gentle stroll alongside the tarn, alongside the river, and then it starts to drop down. So dropping down there and dropping down through those trees, I think, and down onto the valley floor. So I'm still having fun. There's a couple of shots. There's a bridge where the paths split, so I might take some shots there. But I'm really looking forward to that cup of tea at Pete's. Hope he's in. So I hope this comes out. I'll turn with my back to the wind is blowing down the valley behind me quite severely, so it's a bit chilly. But I just stopped on this. It's quite precarious. Hopefully you can see that. Almost fell head over heels there. But there's a nice bit of light shining just on these peaks here. It's coming and going. And what I'm trying to do is the river runs down into the valley, and I'm hoping with my composition that the river flows from the bottom right hand corner
leads the eye round. Bit of sun shining on those peaks. It's just gone in at the moment, but we'll wait a bit. Blimey, almost getting blown off my feet. So you've got a flow of the eye from the right hand corner round. So I'll show you this on the screen if I can. River's coming very bottom right hand corner, heading towards these peaks. If the sun's shining on those peaks, leads the eye round, so you get hopefully a nice curve round. That's the idea anyway. The reason I had a bit of an issue there is I'm bracketing because the contrast in the light and the shade is so high. I was just bracketing some of the exposure. I hope you can hear this, the wind's kind of blowing. I've spoken about bracketing in another video, so check that out. But I'm just waiting now for kind of a gap in the clouds, maybe that one, and a bit of sun over there, so it'd be a really nice contrast, but we'll wait and see. It's not very comfortable standing like this, holding onto the tripod and whatnot, but you know, if I get a good image, it's worth it. And I mentioned the bridge earlier, so down there, hopefully you can see where the kind of river comes along. You can see the path going across the river. I think it's called Stockbridge. So my intention is probably my last image of the day is once I get down to Stockbridge is to take some photos up there. There's a nice waterfall in front of it, and hopefully work on through that. But I've got to get down. It's quite steep, this bit. So I'll wait for the light a bit, pack up, walk down to the bridge. So next thing you'll see, hopefully, is a nice image of this valley. And then the next thing after that will be me down on the bridge. So stay tuned. I keep saying stay tuned. What else are you going to do? You don't tune in a YouTube channel, do you? It's like you tune in a TV. You don't tune into YouTube. Anyway, stay watching. So I'm down at Stockbridge, which is there, and the previous piece which I filmed, I was on that kind of rocky outcrop just there, looking down the valley. So quite a steep descent, but yeah, not bad. So I'm going to go and try and take some images of Stockbridge. There's a waterfall runs up underneath it, so it could be quite nice. But I wanted to show you something because I couldn't show you this morning because it was dark and I had my head torch on. There was nothing for you to see. But kind of this gate here marks a split in the path. So I've just come down this path here, which goes up to Sprinkling Tarn, and this path that runs alongside the wall goes up to Sprinkling Tarn. So up that valley and around the back of that peak to Sprinkling Tarn, and then back round. So I did it in kind of a clockwise direction. When I come back, having been up that way and come down via Styhead, when I come back, I think I'd go up Styhead and come back down kind of the Sprinkling Tarn way and Grant's Gill, on the basis that it's steep here coming down from Styhead, but once you've got over that steep bit, it's a relatively, yes, it's a gradient, obviously upwards, but relatively smooth, where going up that way to Sprinkling Tarn, it was just a long haul all the way up. So depends whether you prefer going up or coming down. My knees don't like coming down, but that was a long haul. It took me probably twice the amount of time to go up than it did to come down, which would be normal anyway, but yeah, definitely I'd go anti-clockwise. So hopefully it didn't make you feel a bit sick there, going to photograph the bridge, and that'll be probably the last images of the day. So, as promised, I'm down under Stockbridge. No trolls. So I'm working on a composition that I think's quite good, but the proof of the pudding is always in the eating, isn't it? So what I'm trying to achieve is a view of this pool in the foreground, leading up to these small waterfalls, up to the bridge, and then get the peak in the background. So I'll show you on the camera. So if you can see, here's the pools bridge is there, and there's the peak. So I quite like that composition. I think it fits well with the rule of thirds. I'll talk about that in another video. So I'm on f11, but again, I'm bracketing the shots on the basis that there's quite high light in the kind of water coming over the rocks there, and then very dark in the peaks. So what I'll need to do is merge those together and draw out the best of both. The sun's over that way somewhere, so that's not really an issue. So let's have a look at how this goes. I've pre-focused on the bridge, so those of you who know what's happening here, that indicates it's on manual focusing. So I've focused on the bridge. I'm bracketing so you can see the 3 exposure levels there. ISO 100. My f-stop aperture is 11. So the first shot's going to be at 0.3 of a second. So 1, 2, 3 shots, and I'll show you those now. So you can see that one obviously really bright but exposed for the foreground. That's a mid-range exposure, so that's kind of your test exposure almost. And then one exposed for the kind of darkness. So blend those 3 together, and it should give me a decent image. It's easier than it sounds, but I'm quite pleased with it. It's almost a curve of the river up to the bridge and then up the peak. So hopefully the final image is a nice curve. So I'm quite pleased with that. When I came past here the first thing this morning, it was pitch black, so didn't really get an opportunity to see it and see what was going on. But I'm quite pleased. It'd be quite nice to come back when there's been in the spring, when there's been that snow melt, because I imagine the water comes through there with some real force. So it's something else for me to log and come back to do. So I'm going to take a couple more and then pack up and then probably head off. So it'd be quite nice to get a troll. So back to where it all started. Just, what time is it now? 1 o'clock, 5 hours or so, 5.5 hours ago. So it's pitch black obviously when I was here first thing. And there's nobody else about, but you can see there's kind of cars around now. So time to kind of change my shoes, unpack, repack, all those type of things, which is the bit I hate the most, but it's got to be done. So I hope you enjoyed a trip up to Sprinkling Tarn and Stockbridge Tarn and the route around. Hopefully you've enjoyed the images. If there's anything you didn't understand in the video, leave a comment below and I'll explain. Or if there's anything you'd like me to talk about in a future video, let me know. Be very happy to do that. I've already had a request to do some of the basics, so I'll be doing a couple of videos about the kind of the basics of photography, just short ones. So hope you've enjoyed the day. I've had a good time. Feet are a little bit sore, but you know, it's great to be out and about. So thanks for watching. I'm off to see Pete and have a well-earned cup of tea and maybe a biscuit. I have to admit, I'm a little bit intimidated by Pete because he's a real mountain man, kind of uber fit. So always find his level of fitness kind of quite intimidating. But I'm going to see him at his house, so have a sit down in a comfy chair and pretend I don't feel any worse than were for that 5.5 hour walk. Right, cheers. Hopefully you'll see me soon.